Throughout video games, one mechanic has dominated player retention: RNG. RNG stands for Random Number Generator, which refers to features with random outcomes in games. The main purpose of RNG is to, of course, keep players hooked to your game, because what's better at keeping kids addicted than a little gambling? After all, that's how casinos make money. In all fairness though, RNG is a necessary feature since without it, games become boring and repetitive. In this video, we'll be looking into the history of RNG on Roblox and how it came to dominate the platform. Now, in the oldest Roblox games, RNG was not very prevalent. Most of the games were simple PvP games with no room for saving or progression. It would take until 2014 when some of the first RNG-based games began to appear on Roblox. These games were mining games, namely the Quarry and Epic Mining 2. Mining games typically involve digging blocks, selling them, and upgrading your pickaxe. Most of the blocks are cheap rocks, but sometimes rare ores will spawn. Of course, RNG is what determines what blocks are spawned, so if you get really lucky, you can sell an expensive ore and get boosted. Although the mine generation is almost entirely based on RNG, developers usually split it into layers so that a noob can't suddenly become the richest player in the game by getting lucky. RNG ensured that rare ores didn't spawn in predictable locations, but since so many blocks were randomized, its effects wouldn't be too extreme. Another example I could find of notable RNG in Roblox was in the 2015 game Arc of the Elements by Awesome Boss. In this game, you roll arcs, which are basically magics, and use them to fight other players. Every time you reach a certain level on your new arc, you can reset for more rolls. Some of these arcs like Mech or Phoenix were extremely rare and thus extremely strong. If you wanted to become the strongest player in the game, you would have to continue grinding spins until you eventually got lucky and roll one of the rare arcs. The randomness of these rolls increases player retention, making the game have much more playtime than if it just had a simple linear progression system. In 2016, a similar game was released called Elemental Wars, created by Gamer Robot, the same group behind Blox Fruits. This game was also based on the mechanic of rolling random magics and hoping to get the best one. Although it might be difficult to beat someone with a stronger magic, there was no other way to progress other than leveling up and resetting for rolls to unlock new magics. The entire premise of the game is to try to get the rarest magic, with fighting being just a method of progression. Although RNG is nowhere near as prevalent as it is in modern Roblox games, it still provided a way for developers to significantly increase the total playtime in their games, without getting too repetitive. Games like Arc of the Elements and Elemental Wars use RNG as one component of their progression systems. Later on, RNG would slowly take over to become the only part of games. But for now, we'll explore how RPGs use the power of RNG to keep players addicted. One RPG released in 2018 that brought RNG to a whole nother level was Vesteria. Vesteria is a typical RPG with luck-based drop rates, but what really brings its RNG to the next level is the scroll system. Each item can be upgraded by a scroll 7 times, but the catch is, scrolls have a chance to fail, using up an upgrade chance. This RNG was further increased by the Curse Scroll, which has random upgrades as well as a chance to destroy the item. This means that to get a powerful weapon or armor, you not only have to get lucky obtaining the armor, you also have to get lucky on every upgrade. Before the game had Holy Scrolls, which removed failed upgrades, the chances of creating a strong weapon were very rare, meaning that players had to spend hundreds of hours trying to grind to get a good weapon. Because of the extreme RNG, Vesteria is able to keep players grinding for ages. It's almost as if the game spawned in hundreds of hours of gameplay from nowhere. Even though Vesteria has added ways to lessen the RNG, dedicated players will still spend countless hours optimizing their equipment. You might think that this level of RNG is the worst that it gets, but no, some games have decided to monetize RNG in their game. No game is a better example of this than Rogue Lineage. Rogue Lineage, the prequel of Deep Woken, is a roguelike game that involves permadeath as well as races. There are many instances of RNG in the game, such as when you spawn in, you are given a random race. Obviously, some of these races are stronger and rarer than others, but what makes Rogue Lineage different from other games is that you have to spend Robux to re-roll your race. Some of the stronger races are much rarer in percentage. For example, the Zin and Fisherian, some of the strongest in the game, are 1% rarity. That doesn't seem too bad, but the fact that each reroll costs 150 Robux makes getting a strong race very expensive. Another instance of RNG in the game is pickable items. These items can be trinkets, the most common, which are primarily used to sell for silver, which is the in-game currency, or gems, which can be used to enchant weapons, or scrolls which you can learn magic spells with. And the most rare type is artifacts. Artifacts are powerful items that grant the user a significant advantage in PvP and of course are very rare to find. RNG has a huge impact in the mechanics and progression of Rogue Lineage, and it of course has been heavily monetized. There have been reports of players spending tens of thousands of Robux just to get a specific race or spending hundreds of hours grinding for artifacts. The last two games I mentioned were both RPGs with some RNG, but here's when the real shift begins. In 2018, Onet released the hit game Bee Swarm Simulator. Initially, the game focused primarily on re-rolling bees using royal jelly to make the best hive. Royal jelly was somewhat hard to attain, making the RNG a rather annoying part of progression, especially in the late game. As updates were released, Bee Swarm Simulator added many new luck-based features such as mob drops and even a new mythic rarity. The amount of hours needed to progress in the game is insane, with good equipment costing a ton of resources and the chance to get a mythic bee being 1 in 25,000. As a result, many players resort to macroing, allowing them to AFK farm to soften the grind. The sheer level of RNG in the game forces players to shift from healthy RNG to unhealthy RNG, where macroing is the only way around it. Some of you might be confused why developers like Onet allow macroing. Once you think like a developer, it's rather simple. AFK farming allows developers to farm playtime, which not only helps their game get recommended more, but also gives developers money through premium payouts. While macroing may cause trouble for economy games, Bee Swarm Simulator's trading system only allows players to trade certain items. As a result of Bee Swarm Simulator's success, other simulator games would follow this RNG-based AFK farming game design. One simulator that really took RNG to the next level is Pet Simulator 99 by Big Games. Even in its prequels, Pet Simulator and Pet Simulator X, eggs have been the main progression system in the game. The first game in the series already had some very rare pets as well as even rare huge pets which players had to spend hours rolling for. Since many rare pets are seen as a collector's item, they hold enormous values to many players, who are mostly kids, who become materialistic and emotionally attached to these items. However, because the game was extremely pay to win, not all players could reasonably obtain these pets. One of many pay to win features was that instead of opening eggs one at a time, you could buy a game pass to either auto open or open in bulk. Other game passes include being able to teleport to different zones or equip infinite pets. As a result of the monetization, the game would slowly die off, leading Big Games to develop sequels of the game to varying levels of success. The second game of the series, Pet Simulator 2, tried to solve the pay-to-win issue but ended up flopping hard. The next game, Pet Simulator X, added some new features but eventually became pay-to-win too. The fourth game of the series, Pet Simulator 99, finally reduced the pay-to-win aspect of the game. That might sound great, right? Well, yeah it is, but the developers added far more RNG than could ever be imagined, like it's almost at Bee Swarm level. Pet Simulator 99 added a significant amount of new RNG features, including random drops, boss chests, minigames, shops, all of which have chances to give good items or even huge pets. Items such as potions and enchants make you earn more coins, and to get higher tiers of each, you either have to endlessly grind or get lucky at rare drops. Of course, players begin to macro farm. You might be asking, why would kids macro this blocky pet game? Wouldn't that be boring? Well, you might be right, except for the fact that huges, titanics, and exclusive enchants exist. These items hold so much value for these kids that there are probably many instances of kids crashing out over getting scammed out of their huges. The fact that some in-game pet holds this much value for these kids is kinda concerning. Like, it is literally the reason kids AFK macro this game. To get a sense of how hard it is to get these huge pets, especially as a free-to-play player, I left my computer running opening eggs overnight and did not get a single huge. I heard that the chance is 1 in 35 million, or 1 in 1 million with the game pass. At this point, huges and Titanics are basically NFTs, and kids would do anything to get these collectibles. Overall, Pet Simulator 99 gave the basis of super rare collectible items, allowing RNG to be tested to its limits through AFK macroing. Now that macroing for rare items has been normalized, one group decided to make a game entirely based off of gambling. This game is Souls RNG. Do you remember games like Pet Simulator that required game passes to auto-open? Well, Souls RNG takes that rolling feature as the main way to progress, unlike in older simulators where you have to arduously click or collect items. In essence, egg opening from other simulators went from the upgrade system to the main grinding method. There's a slight catch though, since you need to be part of the group to auto-roll. On top of rolling, there's also crafting, quests, and potions to help the player progress. When you first join the game, the progression is fairly fast as you unlock tons of new auras and collect many new items. However, once the required auras reach a certain rarity, the game becomes boring if the player doesn't AFK grind. But why do people keep playing this game? Just like Pet Sim 99, super rare items act as a flex, where people want to show it off to their friends or other players. However, after looking into Souls RNG, the progression seems mediocre at best. Many players say the gambling factor of the game is one of the main reasons why they play, but other factors lead me to this conclusion. Most of the player base is probably kids, and most of the dedicated players are likely 10 to 15. Kids at these ages have too much free time, and since Souls RNG is a passive game, they just open Roblox in the background while they watch YouTube or doomscroll Instagram reels. When they eventually roll a rare aura, the rush of dopamine ensures that they will keep playing for at least a few days. Of course, this level of RNG leads to AFK farming, which increases playtime for the devs. This reoccurring theme is the main reason RNG is implemented, and it remains effective for keeping player counts higher for longer. Souls RNG isn't the first game to implement this kind of brain rot auto farming, and if kids really like these type of games, then I guess this is the future of gaming. Seeing the effectiveness of this new genre of games, it would be expected that other devs would join in on this trend. That brings us to today, where there are currently a lot of similar RNG games. Most if not all of them involve auto-rolling for certain items, which can then be used to craft other items. The upgrades typically give luck or spin speed, but in general, most of them follow the same overall structure. One of these spin-offs is Magic RNG, which is basically Souls RNG but with fishing. Others, such as Card RNG or Tycoon RNG, implement some unique feature, making it unique from Souls RNG, but they still heavily rely on AFK macroing to grind for RNG drops. If we look into Card RNG, it adds another source of gameplay, being card fights against NPCs. Honestly, the card fighting is rather simple since you just choose your best card and watch the fight, but it's at least some sort of new content aside from the AFK gambling. On top of that, the cards actually hold some sort of value aside from flexing, which might actually make RNG a bigger factor in the game. The other spin-off, Tycoon RNG, is probably the best take on the new RNG genre. Instead of rolling random auras, you instead roll for droppers, upgrades, and furnaces in order to build your Tycoon. Obviously, the rarer the item, the more powerful it will be. The money you gain can then be used to upgrade your Tycoon. I felt like this game is the most addicting out of the RNG games since it involves some sort of strategy to optimize your Tycoon. What do you guys think? Comment down below what your thoughts are on the rise of RNG in Roblox games, and if you think it makes for good games. Whether or not these types of games stay popular for long, I guess it's up to the players to decide.